Good Shabbos. I'm speaking to you from the Chetrit Sanctuary in our Benaroya Sephardic Center. During the Sinai campaign in the 1950s, when Israel swept through the Sinai desert, a well-known Israeli photographer, Benno Rothenberg, studied the desert landscape and published a book of photographs that garnered wide acclaim. In this book, which I learned about from a book I'm reading by Erica Brown, the landscape was presented and described as a place of incompatible contradictions that lead to earthly spirituality. This idea of incompatible contradictions captured my attention because it resonates with something I've noticed in this week's Torah reading, Parshas Bamidbar. There is a dissonance in our Torah reading that's hard to see at first glance, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. It becomes so obvious. When Sefer Bamidbar opens up, the Jewish people are being counted and organized as a nation. The prince of each tribe is being designated, and the tribes are arranged around the Mishkan and given their order and placement for when they are traveling and when they are camping. Every tribe has its specific place under its specific banner, and there are boundaries that different sorts of people cannot cross within the encampment. Jobs are assigned to different families of the Leviim and the Kohanim in order to construct and transport the Mishkan. And there are laws that are set down about which members of the Jewish people can enter which portions of the camp. And yet, what is the setting? What is the backdrop to all of this rigorous, detailed organization and preparation? The desert. A place that is by definition disorganized, chaotic, unscripted. The desert in literature is a symbol of lawlessness and disorganization. And yet here in the desert, the Jewish people are given their ultimate directions with the giving of the Torah. They're organized as a camp, as a community arrayed around the Mishkan. Even their judicial system is set up and organized on the advice of Yisro here in the desert. What is the lesson to be found in this dissonance, this contrast between the orderliness that is commanded to the Jewish people while dwelling in a place marked by its disorder? The Netziv has a fascinating observation in his discussion of the mitzvah to appoint a king. He argues it's a reshus, it's an optional mitzvah because each country has its own customs, its own way of doing things. And so a governmental structure that may work for one country may not work for another. And certain eras in the history of a country may lend themselves more to one form of government over another. So the Torah cannot command one system of government for the Jewish people for all time, because the Jewish community will look different in different places and in different eras. So perhaps the lesson of the desert as the backdrop for organizing the community is that the way a community organizes itself is relative to the era and to the culture of its time. The desert now becomes the symbol not of disorder, but rather of a blank slate, a tabula rasa, to quote the Latin phrase. It's the backdrop against which the Jewish people can then build and organize their community. And I believe this idea can give us guidance in this confusing stage of dealing with the pandemic. Different communities, different states, different countries are all grappling with how and when to relax restrictions. It can be a cause of great stress to compare one's own surrounding community and how it operates with another community. But we should be reassured by the fact that we collectively as a community are navigating this confusing and complex time based on science, based on common sense, based on our values and our commitment to the collective good and well-being. And we're doing so in a way that expresses our deep sense of unity, of achdus with the surrounding Bergen County Jewish community, our neighbors and friends. We are getting through this because we are getting through this together. Good Shabbos.